appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. As I'm not sure whether to call this a service, a worship service, or something, to give worth, to worship, to make worship, like craftsman is where that word comes from. It's loaded, I guess. This spiritual observation I thought I would do. Let us have a little opening words. If you'd like to call it a prayer, if you don't like those words, delete those from the broadcast. O Spirit of all names, beyond all names, beyond all image and identity, know us here, feel our intention. Let our presence on this earth be healing. Let us move beyond frustration, anger, wounds, and sense of loss. Let us make a new creation, a new work of art, a new humanity. Let us have the courage to defend the worth and dignity of all people. Let us have the wisdom to know the earth and its wealth are not ours. Let us have the compassion to feel the pain of injustice that members of our human family may endure. For what affects one of us touches us all. There is no immunity, only denial. Let us see with endurance the long road to justice before us. Let us have the patience to understand that others feel differently about the way forward. Let us lead by example. Let us learn as we teach. Let us carry peace as our weapon and love as our revenge. May we see widely enough to perceive the vision of one world at peace, living in equality and justice. We will one day hand this world over. Let it be whole. Here's an old gospel tune. I'm not sure how old. Sullivan and Iola Pugh, Sullivan Pugh, really kind of came up with this, but it's in such a style of gospel songs. Does one really compose one? I think you do. If you compose a blues, you can compose a gospel piece like this. May the work that I've done speak for me. May the work that I've done speak for me. When I'm resting in my grave and there's nothing more to be said, may the work that I've done speak for me. Let the service that I give speak for me. Let the service that I give speak for me. When I've done the best I can, and even my friends don't understand, let the service that I give speak for me. May the people that I've touched speak for me. Let the people that I've touched speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, may the work that I've done speak for me. The work I've done, you know, it seems so small. Sometimes it feels like I've done nothing at all. But if there's a judgment day, you did all right. I want to hear them say, may the work that I've done speak for me. Let me say one more verse. May the life that I've lived speak for me. May the life that I've lived speak for me. When I've done my best at living, my mistakes I pray will be forgiven. May the work that I've done, may the life that I've lived, may the people that I've touched, may the service that I give, may the work that I've done speak for me. bunch of words I wanted to say today about, not about the last week. You know, I don't watch television. Well, I listen to National Public Radio all day long, and I've gotten plenty of description. I haven't seen graphic pictures of burning buildings and wounded people and so on. But I have vivid recollections of what happened almost exactly 50 years ago, and I want to talk about that. But I think I want to sing this song first. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our resound, rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. That's one verse. Could you tap the bar on there? That's one verse of Lift Every Voice and Sing by James Weldon Johnson, what many people refer to as the African American national anthem, African American anthem, and national American, African American, US of A American anthem. I like it. I like it a little better than bombs bursting in air, I'll say that. But I'm biased. This week, it's been pretty grown-up subjects. We want to maybe almost save our kids from seeing what's going on or explain to them what's going on. But maybe a song for kids is in order in a service. A little song about making peace. Has my first verse in Spanish in it. Well, I think I'd like to be your friend. I think that we could really have some fun. A real companion is so much better than pretend, and games are better played by more than one. So I think I'd like to be your friend. You look sort of different from me, and I guess that I was not too sure about you. But if you like the way the different colored flowers go together, well, I guess that goes for people too. And I'd like to be friends with you. You see, I'm kind of new in this school, and I don't know know a lot about your town. I don't know all your language, but I can play it cool. This making new friends is not as bad as it sounds. You know I'm kind of fun to have around. I can be serious, or I can be a clown. I can make you want to giggle when you're wearing a frown. Well, it's too much trouble to be nasty, I've found. Porque quiero ser tu amigo y tengo otros amigos que vas a conocer. Una vez que empecemos no se sabe cuándo acabará, pero es maravilloso ver el círculo crecer y todos nuestros amigos sean amigos. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. What do you say? Well, I think I'd like to be your friend, and there's other friends I'd like you to know. Once we start, there's no telling just where it all will end, but it's great to see the circle grow. We'll get all of our friends to be friends. We won't have to be afraid when we're friends. No, we won't want to fight when we're friends. No, if kids can do it, well, maybe grown-ups can be friends. We'll get the whole world to be friends. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Lest we think that things are worse than ever. I know many people say we're up against a lot of things that are worse than they've ever seen in their lives. But just a little parallel, if I might. 50 years ago, May, June, I was in the Army band playing electric guitar, Army issue electric guitar. They sent me to the store and said, buy a guitar. I came back and said, well, is this one this? And she said, why didn't you buy one? And, well, because this wasn't. Somebody just, the leader just said, well, what's the best one? And, well, I guess this one here, the gold-plated blonde finish Gibson L5. I said, buy that one. And ooh, I had to give it back, of course, but played that in the Army band, and we were touring the country. Just before we left on this tour, I spoke about this in one of my concerts a couple of weeks ago. News broke that Richard Nixon's escalation of the bombing, which meant taking the bombing to Cambodia, and there's pictures of him poking at this crappy map. I think, we're going over here to Cambodia. We're not invading Cambodia. Well, there was a big peace rally already planned in Washington that May 1st, and it drew a whole lot more people because the anger that erupted is really hard to describe now what was going on. And the protests of young people everywhere against the secrecy and the lies that were being told about the war. Many had believed the war was getting over. I think I had believed that. Kent State University was like a lot of universities, full of protests. Kids of draft age, mostly against the war, though we should remember not all were against the war. Friday, May 1st, police broke up protests and bars were closed. And this was happening in colleges all over the place. In Maryland, University of Maryland was similar activities, though not National Guard. I went with some of the Army guys. We went to the demonstration on Saturday. But in Kent State, outside of Cleveland, or Yes, southeast of Cleveland. The National Guard was called in. Ohio Governor Rhodes showed up Sunday and declared no students were going to close his university. And he threatened that these unarmed students were up against a highly armed military force. Those were his words. There was a curfew. Students were forced into their dorms. Several were bayoneted as they were chased into their dorms. I want to imagine what that's like when you're a student and this is your home. So Monday, 2,000, some say 3,000 students gathered to hear speeches. The National Guard was ordered to disperse them. They started with tear gas. The students threw the canisters back at the guards. Protesters were chased. A number ended up in an athletic field that had a fence around it. The guard turned around. But a sergeant, Martin Pryor, turned and fired his pistol. Then other guardsmen fired as well. Some reported there were shots a minute before that. We're not sure. Yes, we are. Guardsmen mostly said they heard no order to fire, though some say they did. Who issued the order was never pursued. Why we don't know exactly who ordered to fire, who fired, and how many shots is a good question, considering the totally regulated military force. Perhaps as many as 29 of the 77 guardsmen started to fire. Students were running away. The firing lasted about 15 seconds. 67 shots were estimated to be fired. 2 protesters, 19-year-old Allison Krauss, 20-year-old Jeffrey Miller, were killed, and 9 more wounded. Then nearly 400 feet away, it was discovered William Schroeder, 19, and Sandra Lee Schur, 20, were killed. They were just going from one class to another. They didn't have anything to do with the protest. Mary Vecchio knelt by Jeffrey Miller's fallen body and screamed. Her picture is the image everyone knew. John Philo is a professional photographer now. He was the closest to any kind of professional documenting of what was going on there. He was just a student who happened to have a camera. That was it. The National Guard didn't know what to do. They didn't advance. They backed up. Within minutes, ambulances were racing around. One student I heard said a couple of young women begged him, did he have dimes? That's what he needed. Dimes to go to the payphone and call for ambulances. Students mostly retreated and massed in another area, and a professor, Glenn Frank, pleaded with them to disperse. Please go home. Most of them did. Most people credit him with saving a lot of lives, as most did disperse, as he convinced them to. In the next few days, the protests spread across the country. We were driving across the country as the Army band at that time, and I did my sociological study of perhaps 20 different universities in the next couple of weeks, few weeks. May 8th, 11 students were bayoneted at the University of New Mexico by the National Guard in a confrontation. A huge demonstration in Augusta, where poor people, mostly of color, protested that a poor black student, middle school, I think, student, had been arrested and was beaten and died in police custody. Later, it was expressed that it was not, it more or less proven, I guess, that it was not police, but they didn't protect him from the other inmates in this prison. So a huge demonstration in Augusta was also met by huge force. May 8th, an anti-war protest in New York was met by pro-Nixon construction workers in what was called the Hard Hat Riot, where they beat the students, the protesters. Military response to students just exercising their rights to protest. These were white students mostly, shocking the country. But let's consider this is nothing new, was nothing new to people of color who'd been met by racist police time and time again. But if you see the pictures of the students, Now I can see it. Our long hair, well, I was in the army. Before that, long hair. This made them hippies. It was a new other for conservative America. Warnings in the government circles were if blacks and hippies ever got together, it would be the end of things for that conservative status quo. So military force is what's called out. On May 11th in Augusta, well, that's the one I just mentioned. I got some notes here. Charles Oatman was killed. He was beaten and tortured and killed. Cigarette burns on him. It was eventually shown that it was other people in the jail, but the police didn't protect him. And in the uprising, stores were burned and looted. They were met by police with shotguns. Police wounded 60 people and killed 6. Charlie McMurphy, William Wright, Sammy McCullough, John Stokes, John Bennett, and Mac Wilson. Despite later claims by police they acted in self-defense, the 6 men they killed were all unarmed and shot in the back. 3 were shot multiple times. May 14th, at Jackson State University, a group of around 100 students gathered. Some started trash fires. A truck was overturned. The reason was a false rumor that had been spread of the death of Charles Evers, Medgar Evers' brother. Medgar Evers had been killed. It wasn't true. Charles Evers, though, was voted Man of the Year by the NAACP. Firefighters requested police support, and 75 police units from the city and state highway patrol responded. Firemen left the scene, but a crowd persisted. No one has any evidence of what provoked it, but about midnight, police opened fire on the crowd in front of Alexander Hall. It's a dormitory. Students claim they didn't provoke the officers. Authorities claim they saw a sniper, but FBI investigation found no evidence to support that. More than 460 shots were fired, shotguns from 30 to 50 feet. All the windows were shattered. Students scattered and ran. People were trampled and they were cut by falling glass. Philip Lafayette Gibbs, he was 21, a junior, and James Earl Green, a track star, 17 years old, high school track star who happened to be on campus, was killed. 12 others were wounded. Gibbs was killed near Alexander Hall, while Green was killed behind the police lines with a shotgun. In the next month, over 4 million students, loose count, protested at 450 American colleges and universities. Colleges and universities closed. Many were in the midst of final exams and such anyway, but colleges and universities closed during the student strikes. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger admitted that President Nixon was pretending indifference. Nixon's press secretary, Ron Ziegler, said, "When dissent turns to violence, it invites tragedy." 3 days before the shootings, Nixon had talked of the bums who were anti-protesters on campuses, and Ohio governor, what was his name, claimed it was outside agitators. If it sounds anything similar to looting invites shooting and thugs that we've heard this week. Well, President Nixon wanted to institute the Houston Plan, using illegal procedures to spy on anti-war protesters' movements. Surprisingly, it was FBI head J. Edgar Hoover who stopped that plan. Nixon later, though, only a little later, established what was called the Scranton Commission on campus unrest to try to make the protesters into the villains. We have to remember how divided the country was at that point. There was the don't trust anyone over 30. Anyone under 30 or under 26 was likely to be drafted. people over 30 and all around Kent State said, why didn't they shoot more of them? Obviously, the protesters being turned into the villains. In September, though, of 1970, the report concluded the National Guard shootings were unjustified. 8 guardsmen were indicted. Their charges were dismissed. 24 students and a faculty member were indicted. Eventually, after complications, out of court as well. There is evidence that has turned up that a Kent State student, Terry Norman, who was an FBI informant, was carrying a pistol. He showed it off to people. He made no secret he was carrying a pistol. He was photographing the demonstrators. There were reports he pointed his gun, threatening protesters, and some say he fired it. It's been denied. Suspiciously, for a while, the FBI denied that he was an informant. But the FBI moved him very soon after that to New York and made him a security guard. He was 100 yards away from the National Guard line. An audio recording made from a window by a student, Glenn Straub, was rediscovered in 2014. It had been at Yale, I believe, in a library of documents about the incident. It shows that there were 4 shots that have been identified as sounding like a .38 pistol, 1 full minute before the guardsman fired. It also reveals there was a verbal order shouted to fire. Some guardsmen had testified they didn't hear it, but others did, and in the noise, they began to fire when others did. So there are still investigations. The jury is still out on how it started, and no one knows for sure. But armed forces killed American students a number of times through those months. I think it spelled the end of peaceful protests. Yes, we still can believe in that we might have peaceful protests, but peaceful protests have been met. The Chicago so-called riots that students, the anti-war demonstrations at the Democratic Convention, not the Republican Convention, but the Democratic Convention, where they thought they would be heard, in 1968, of course, was met with what has now been identified as a police riot. And it was government infiltrators who started the trouble. They were hired to be spies, but they actually initiated the troubles, the violence, and police rioted, beating the hippies and chasing them back. All of that's very clear in my memory. I pray we don't rise to those proportions. I am not opposed to uniformed forces, to police, to army. I was one, so I'm speaking as someone who knows what that's about, someone who was trained to use an M14 and an M16. I've never touched a weapon since, but got a marksman badge. We want the police to protect us. We want the police to protect all of us. We don't just want the police to protect the rich against the poor. We want the police to protect all of us. That must mean the police need oversight. A song by Solomon Burke. You better listen, brothers and sisters, 'cause if you do, you can hear there are voices still calling from across the years. And they're crying across the ocean, they're crying across the land, and they will till we all come to understand. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us people in the darkness. They just can't see the light. And if we don't say it's wrong, then it says it's right. We got to feel for each other, let our brothers know we're here. Got to get the message, send it out loud and clear. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, one of us is free. None of us are free. Isn't very hard to find. None of us can find it on our own. We got to get together in spirit, heart, and mind. All the suffering, no, they're not alone. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Now if you just look around you, you see what I say. The world's getting smaller each passing day. Now it's time to make some changes. It's time we all realize that the truth is shining right before our eyes. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us is chained. One of us is. None of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. I got a little list here. I hope I'm speaking to people of many races and creeds and religions, but often I'm not. So here's a little list. 5 ways white people can respond to state-sanctioned violence. Could you push that button? My monitor keeps going away. 1, come out as anti-racist and invite other people to join you. Be public and vocal about which side you're on. Share details of what you're doing to make this commitment real. Invite other people to join you. Don't have any black friends? What can we do about that? Join fights to fund other things than police. Join the local group deciding how your community will spend its resources. I didn't hold that up long enough, did I? Join fights to fund other things than the police. Tell your local group, your town, your community, who's the people who are deciding how your community will spend their resources. Tell decision makers what your community really needs is mental health services and affordable housing instead of more funding for police. Make a commitment to organize your own for the long haul. For too long, those at the top have relied on the silence of comfortable white people to keep things as they are, and we all lose. When we break away, join movements for justice, and believe me, they're all around you. This can tip the balance of power and can really win change. Be an ally and be prepared to learn and support the efforts led by people of color. And this one. Focus on building our numbers, not being totally right, or right the way I think it's right. We need to move people with us. That means including people who are conflicted. They may be watching from the sidelines. Need some convincing. It might feel good just to preach at other people, yell at them perhaps. It feels good for me. But when we spend time with those who are awakening, as imperfect as they are, it helps us all. That's the work. And this. Help to resource, contribute? Help to resource the work of Black-led groups. Find and support a local group in your community. May I mention, the next hour I'm on an executive meeting with the NAACP. I'm Assistant Secretary, I'm honored to say, of the Worcester Branch NAACP. If you are anywhere near Worcester and would like to get connected with that, I hope you will. So make sure that folks that are most impacted have the resources to perhaps even stay in the streets and dream up the most powerful, transformative ways forward. I didn't make this up. This list came from SURGE, which is an acronym for Showing Up for Racial Justice. I was going to sing a song. I'll put this in. I'm thinking I'm talking too much. No, I'll sing a song. Sometimes my sermons are what's the word I want here? Improvised, and I guess I think that my sermons are in the songs. A song for peace. I am waiting in the silence. I am waiting for the dawn. I am often found in reverence, though from many sources drawn. It is not mine to fight for justice, for it will not be won this day. I am peace, and I am waiting for the lost to find their way. You'll not find me set in judgment of the vain or of the weak, but I rise to meet the weary with the solace that they seek. Still I have not fed the hungry, nor strewn wealth among the poor. I am peace, and bring but mystery, and the patience to endure. I cannot save the suffering from their anger and their pain, only open doors of insight so the healing comes again. proud, I am elusive. To the humble, I am near. May the broken rise and look beyond the trappings of their fear. I am found among the seasons, autumn's death and spring's rebirth, as relentless their momentum as the turning of the earth. All are welcome in my presence, for only love can conquer hate. I am peace, and for the harvest I have planted and will wait. A Buddhist monk said this. I thought it was Thich Nhat Hanh, but turns out it wasn't. Prayer is part of my daily practice, but I do not believe prayer will bring peace on earth, peaceful society. Thousands of years we pray, nothing happened. So now we should be realistic. I often tell people, if you have the opportunity to see Buddha or Jesus Christ, tell them to end violence. Ask them, please bring peace on our planet. Then certainly they will say to you, who creates this violence? If violence was created by God, then it's relevant to appeal to God. Say, stop this, I pray, please, I pray. But we created violence. So Jesus Christ and Buddha would no doubt say to us, you created the problem. So it's your responsibility to solve this. Don't bother God with your problems. Work hard to solve them. This is where creativity comes in. Work, creative work. It might be hard. Not creative ideas so much. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Less good ideas are cheaper. A good idea worked on can truly turn into something. So can a less than good idea. My wish for you, as now we part, is for greater peace to fill your heart with dreams as vast as starry space. So hurt and anger know no place. May truth be shared and wounds be healed, and joy for living be revealed. Through every fate and circumstance, may hope lead weary steps to dance. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, then softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night. May fears be turned with keen insight to wisdom for what's just and right. Where sorrow grows, compassion strong, and pains will pass before too long. May the bounds of our diversity serve a richer harmony. May courage hold your heart so true to smile on love when it smiles on you. And may your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, then softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night. with the dawn, to sing awake the light, then softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night, ever dancing circles in the night, ever dancing circles in the night. Well, we hope these words and music will energize and inspire and uplift your work this week. I'm going to do it every Sunday. I didn't do any kind of fundraising commercials in here, but right at the bottom of the screen, that paypal.com/user/Jim Scott Music is where you might make a donation to support my work. My touring is, of course, gone right now. And you can also go to my website, Jim Scott Music, and there's a store you can buy CDs and songbooks and make a donation. Right on the front page is a place where you can go to the PayPal button, and we appreciate that. It helps keep us going. And I'm doing concerts on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, so it's only 6 p.m. on West Coast. And there are people who have said, but Wednesday night's not good for me, or that's too early, or that's too late. Can you do something on the weekend? So if I'm not going to be overexposed, I think I'll do this every week. Sunday will give a spiritual dimension. And this Wednesday, I'm going to persuade my daughter Louisa to join me. And we're going to celebrate that 4-letter word, love. Serious love, agape, world-saving love, selfless love, puppy love, and all that mush love. And it won't be all serious. So thank you very much. Hope you can come back and visit us. Friend me if you're not friending already. This is on Facebook and YouTube. I think I should sing that chorus one more time. And may your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, then softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night, ever dancing circles in the night, ever dancing circles in the night. Thank you, everyone, for coming.